Welcome and how do you do? On this episode of Playing Shakespeare, we are going to deviate a bit from our normal programming. I, as I'm sure you recognize from my always less than attractive tie and cardigan, am John Barton. With me today we have a very experienced actor. We'll get to him in a moment. But first, tonight's discussion. Was Shakespeare all that in a bag of potato chips? Now, many of you will be going, scoffing and whatnot at me going, John Barton, what do you mean? How can you be questioning the genius himself of William Shakespeare? Well, tonight we're going to answer that question, and with me, as always, is our esteemed associate, Connor Kessler, world-renowned Shakespearean actor and philanthropist as well. Connor, introduce yourself to the folks at home.
Hello, my name is Connor Kessler. I've been studying Shakespeare for over 40 years. I seem to almost know him personally. I know him so well. Everything about him is second nature to me.
Yes, well said. Now, before we begin our programming, we want to catch you all up. For those of you following at home with our book, The Age of Shakespeare, we are now on our last stretch, as it were, the final hump. Almost there. The final stretch. Almost there. That being said, Connor, could you tell us a little bit about the famous role of Hamlet in Shakespeare's play?
Hamlet is an enormous undertaking for any Shakespearean actor. It's the largest of Shakespeare's plays, clocking in at over 4,000 lines. Unbelievable amount of actors have attempted the role of Hamlet. There have been successes and failures. Among the failures, Jude Law, God bless him. Mel Gibson, God bless him. But the successes are many, and they have included Laurence Olivier, Ben Kingsley, John Barrymore, John Gielgud, Peter O'Toole, among others.
It's actually funny that you should mention Peter O'Toole, because for our viewers who tuned in last week, you will have seen Peter O'Toole in a full naked bodysuit with the Jesus Christ thorned crown upon his head as he was reading an excerpt from his original play, The Golden Colostomy Bag of King Tutankhamun. But more on that in a later episode. Next, Connor, I want to ask you about the industry of Shakespeare and what it means to you as an actor.
Yes, the industry of Shakespeare, I believe, is an enormously influential industry, but unfortunately it is not popular in France or any Latin-based speaking areas because the language is too big of an obstacle.
Now, speaking of the language, with the early movies of the time, before the speakies came along, the talkies as it were, the silent films, was Shakespeare popular with those? And if there were there many films, and how were they?
There were an unbelievably large amount. I've seen them all, and they're not any good.
Well, coming from a man of your stature within the acting and Shakespearean community, that is saying a lot now, isn't it? Now, what about Shakespeare within the opera community? What do you know about that?
I wish those were also without sound in the non-talkie era.
Well, I bet you do. Connor here has been noted to be a very astute critic of the opera theatre form. Now, moving on, we're going to answer the question of the evening tonight about, was Shakespeare all that in a bag of chips? What I want to do first is we're going to do a dramatic reading, as it were, of a critical review of Shakespeare and his work from the Philosophical Letters of 1733. Connor Kessler here is going to read said review as a dramatic reading, as Shakespeare probably would have transformed it somehow of his time once he read this same review. Connor, off you go.
Shakespeare.
Alright, I'm going to stop you right there. Now, if you noticed, the reviewer starts with Shakespeare. Why do you think that is?
It's the subject of the sentence.
Right, and being the subject of the sentence, I think it's a safe bet to say that perhaps the reviewer was paying an homage to Shakespeare, saying he has got the English language down to a T, knowing full well that every sentence needs a subject. Now, also, do you notice it's capitalized? Why do you think that is?
Shakespeare is an unbelievably influential character.
Right.
Also, proper noun and at the beginning of a sentence.
Right, so this next time through, I want you to channel all that into your emotional quality of your voice, all the while keeping in mind, how do I get my point across and make the audience listen to what I have to say? Off you go.
Shakespeare boasted a strong, fruitful genius.
Alright, I'm going to stop you there. Now, if you noticed, the reviewer uses the word fruitful. Now, I often ponder to myself when I'm at home and the power goes out, if the word fruitful isn't a tag on his sexual orientation, as rumors have swirled around. What do you think about that? Well, that's actually not for you to decide, because really he's dead and he can't defend himself. Let's move on again. I want you to try and gather yourself as if you were, in fact, the reviewer writing this about. Do you think he would try to slander Shakespeare's good name that way, or if he's just purely critiquing his work?
No one can slander Shakespeare.
Well,
he's transcendent.
Well said. And I would agree with you, because, you know, every time I think of the man, it's just wet dream inspiring, as it were. Now this time, go again. I'm going to stand behind you this time and watch you follow along with my eyes. Don't be alarmed. Just try it again.
Shakespeare boasted a strong, fruitful genius. He was natural and sublime, but had not so much as a single spark of good taste. This is daft. I can't do it.
Well done. It's okay, it's well done. If you notice how when Connor was actually saying the review, it almost naturally, because he is such a highly astute Shakespearean actor, fell into iambic pentameter of dee-dum, 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 so on and so forth. Now, that's all the time we have for this time, so if you join us next week, we will answer the question, colostomy bags, accessory or necessity? Thank you very much, and good night.